Armstrong has a bag of limitless holding, but what's in that bag? Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where we have some beers and then take your favorite trade paperbacks and Stinkalicious and break them down into digestible bites that I think even Armstrong can understand. Then I read it dramatically back to you, confusing our other hero, Archer. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problem, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Manhattan, 1953. Late one night, Armstrong and Frank break into a mafia-owned liquor store looking for something very specific. Armstrong questions if this is even the right place, and Frank tells him, Louis the Scumbag is many things, but a liar ain't one of them. While Frank continues to search, Armstrong finds a bottle of Lagavulin 1907 and says that this stuff is like perfection in a bottle. After a little bit more searching, Frank finally finds the locket that he's been looking for, and he tells Armstrong, time to go. Armstrong starts to stuff a crate of booze into his satchel of limitless holding because it is bottomless and can hold everything, deciding that the goons can't miss a crate or 5 of their booze, can they? So the two of them walk out there, soon surrounded by mafia members, and Armstrong says that he thinks Louis the Scumbag may have sold them out. But don't worry, he has a plan! Duck! Armstrong then charges through, knocking all of the men down, but one quickly gets back up holding a gun to Armstrong's head, telling him, don't move. Before the mobster can do anything though, Frank runs in with a bottle, shattering it over the man's head. Armstrong gets back up and sulks, looking at the bottle, asking, do you have any idea how rare that bottle was? The two of them finally escape and they sit on the park bench, and Frank asks if he's ever told the story of how his father bought this locket for his mother during World War I. Armstrong starts to dig through his bag, telling him, Jesus, yes, but you can tell the story. She'd be proud of you getting it back. Armstrong pulls out that super rare liquor and pours the two of them a glass, a toast to another successful, stupid, and poorly planned adventure. And Frank adds, to another 100 like that! Now, in the current day, Armstrong sits in his bed looking at an obituary, and he sees Frank's name on it. Armstrong starts to dig through his bag, and not finding what he's looking for, he then goes back to the article and he says, don't worry, Frank, I won't let you down again. A little while later, Archer comes to check on Armstrong, but as he goes into the room, he finds 3 lizard men hissing at him. What the lizard men don't know is that Archer has mastered many forms of physical combat, and because of that, Archer easily defeats them. One of them escapes though, jumping into the bag lying on the floor, and that's when Archer notices that Armstrong has left his bag open. After tying the lizard men up, he sits on the bed reading a note that Armstrong left, stating that he lost something important and he went to his bag to get it, but he'll be back soon. He looks down at the bag, and then a small creature jumps out, telling Archer to prepare to have his insides torn asunder by the mighty. But before the creature can finish talking, Archer crushes his head, calling him, you jerk. Archer decides to wait and he watches some TV when out of the bag, a small fish man jumps out looking at him. He has just found his freedom! Archer grabs the fish, asking if he just came out of the bag. Did you see a large man with a beard, possibly drunk and going into the bag? The fish says, I don't know anything about you, pal. I was just trying to escape the bag because of a dark and ancient evil in there. Oh, is this the end of old Davy the Mackerel? Archer drops him saying, what? No, but all of you creatures need to get back into the bag. I've got a phone call to make. A little while later, Archer's sister, Mary Marie, who also happens to be the leader of the Sisters of Perpetual Darkness, shows up, and Archer explains what happened. She tells him that he should just close the bag and leave Armstrong in there. And Archer tells her, that's not funny. Armstrong may have many flaws, but he is still a friend. So I'm going to need you to keep guard and make sure nothing escapes while I go in after him. Even though she would much rather steal the satchel, she tells him fine. So Archer starts to climb down into the satchel, and he tells her, if I'm not back by sunrise, you're gonna have to come in and rescue both of us. Mary Marie tells him, fine, just hurry before I decide to change my mind and steal the bag. Once he gets inside the satchel, Archer tries asking some of the goblins living there if they've seen his friend, but all of them just ignore him. Finally getting annoyed, Archer kicks open one of the doors that the goblins went through, demanding that someone answer his question. One of them flicks him off, stating, we've never heard of him. So Archer breaks their finger. Another goblin says that there's a lower level that's off limits to the goblin, so if it's anything important, it's probably down there. She can show him the way if he lets go of her grandmother's finger. Archer looks back and he says, sorry ma'am, but the grandmother tells him to bite her. Once the goblins lead Archer down into the lower levels, Archer comes to a door and he opens it, finding Armstrong going through walls of liquor bottles. Archer tells him that they need to go. He left the bag open and things are escaping, and he beat up some goblin grandmother because she looked like a man because all the goblins look the same. Is that racist? Am I a racist, Armstrong? Armstrong tells him, slow down. I'm not leaving here until I find what I'm looking for. And soon the two of them smell something. Something like garbage. Through the door, monsters begin to break through, and on top of them, a figure steps out. It is I, Brackus, your old friend and now your oldest enemy, Armstrong. Armstrong tries to think, that name sounds familiar. Brackus tells him, what the hell, dude? You used to say I threw the sickest parties. We were bros until you shoved me into this garbage-filled sack. Armstrong tells him, I'm sorry, but I'm really old and I drink a lot. So Brackus gets saddened and he says, doesn't matter. It's not like I've been planning this for 3,000 years or anything. Garbage monsters, go ahead and take these two to the torture chamber. As the trash begins to surround them, Archer says not to worry. Mary Marie will come save them. Armstrong says, you know, she probably already stole the satchel, right? Topside, Mary Marie says that she's sorry, and then she orders her sisters to pull up the rope. They're taking the bag. As Archer and Armstrong are carried off in chains, Armstrong explains what happened back then with Frank. During one of their adventures of robbing an Incan death cult, Frank met a woman named Muriel, who happened to be there saving her parents from the same cult, and the two of them later became married. Then, one night after another adventure, the group celebrated like they always did with drinks, and that night Armstrong went too far and he made a pass at Muriel. After that, Muriel stopped coming on adventures, and not much later, Frank stopped talking to him. Archer says, you were friends, and you treated them like... But Armstrong finishes his sentence, like garbage. Archer goes on stating, because of you and your mistakes, has gotten us captured by these garbage monsters. One of the monsters says, we actually prefer to be called trash golems. Garbage monster is just hurtful. So Archer tells him sorry. He didn't mean any offense. And while they are in trouble, Archer is still pining that Mary Marie will save them. He just wished he knew what was taking her so long. Topside, Mary Marie and her sisters continue to try and untie the rope to free the satchel. But before Mary Marie decides to cut the rope, a giant robot starts to climb out and it runs through the wall outside. The sisters ask what they should do and Mary Marie says, hang on, I'm trying to think. While the robot starts to destroy things, Davy pokes his head out of the satchel. I'm free again! Mary Marie points her sword at Davy, telling him, not so fast. You are the fish that my brother spoke of. Where did the two that went inside go? Davy says that they've been captured, so he figured he would escape. He just didn't take her and her gang of murder nuns into account. Mary Marie tells the sisters that there's been a change of plans. It's true, she will go rescue her adopted brother, even though they have fought many times before. If any of them attempt to trap her inside the satchel, she will murder the living crap out of all of them. So one sister will guard the bag and the rest of them will go after that goddamned robot. As Mary Marie makes her way out, the goblins begin to get out and run away. She tries to call out for them to stop, but the goblins keep running and duck around a corner. The goblin hears his friends call out to him and soon they begin to make fun of her, mimicking her. As the goblin stands and poses, his head and arm are sliced off and the guts sprayed all over his other goblin friends. And Mary Marie leans down stating, let's try this again. Over in a tower elsewhere, Archer and Armstrong continue to argue over his actions when Brackus appears before them. Archer asks Brackus if he's even sure that Armstrong deserves whatever punishment they have in mind. Since Archer's never met Brackus, he asks, would you mind telling me what Armstrong did? Brackus explains that 3,000 years ago, Armstrong called him to throw a wedding feast, and as he recalls, it was one of his more epic rages! But like a drunken fool, Armstrong took things too far and shoved him into a satchel. Slowly, Armstrong begins to remember him stating, oh yeah! You were the party god, ancient Rome, right? Well, not to make any excuses, but I caught a bad case of ergot poisoning and was tripping balls. I thought you were a hallucination. Brackus turns away stating, unbelievable, just unbelievable! But it doesn't matter, I knew this day would come. All I had to do was take your bottle of Loveland 1907. Armstrong calls him out, you son of a bit. But how about this? I'll make you a deal. Give me back the whiskey, let us go, and I won't punch your skull and then sell it to a petting zoo. Brackus starts to laugh, stating, I have a better idea. How about for 3,000 years, I'm just gonna watch you and your friend get force-fed every terrible bottle of booze you ever drop down this sack. As Archer and Armstrong are strapped with masks, Brackus states that he will leave the bottle right here for them to look at, and then the goblins begin to pour down the booze. Brackus tells the goblins that he must go and pay tribute to the urine gods of old, so make sure that these two don't escape. I'll be right back. Once Brackus leaves, Archer and Armstrong begin to muffle to each other through their masks, and Armstrong says, I'm sorry. You know what? I'll just tell you guys what they're actually saying. I'm sorry. I should have been honest from you from the start, and now I'm ruining it. Archer tells him, it's okay. Just after learning everything my parents told me about you was a lie, you were the only person that was being true with me, and when you lie or do selfish things, it hurts. Armstrong tells him, Archer, I love you, man. And Archer says, no. I love you, man. The goblins all become teary-eyed at the two friends, but then a figure behind them tells them, it's a touching moment, isn't it? Mary Marie begins to charge through the goblins, slicing and cutting everything in her path, sending back bits and pieces of their body parts everywhere. Before she can free Archer and Armstrong, Brackus comes back from the bathroom shouting, I've only been gone for 5 minutes! And Mary Marie tells him, you must be the jerk who kidnapped Archer. So before you can even try and escape, I'm just gonna defeat you. Brackus stops and thinks, escapes? That would mean the bag is open for me to leave? They couldn't really have been this dumb. It's only one way to find out. Brackus leaves, telling them not to follow. The door is like super strong. Mary Marie tries to follow, but she's no match for the strong doors. So she grabs the keys to free Archer and Armstrong. Once Archer is free, he tells Mary Marie thank you, but soon he throws up all the booze that he drank all over her. Mary Marie punches him, telling him that they are in mortal danger right now. They're gonna have to talk later, and he will certainly not enjoy it. But right now, they need to leave. Armstrong grabs Archer, and then he and Mary Marie begin to escape, but as soon as they get out of the tower, they find themselves surrounded by Brackus's guards, and Mary Marie says that she's really starting to hate this stupid bag. Soon, Armstrong and Mary Marie begin ripping through the guards, but Archer's not really in the shape to fight. He keeps throwing up everywhere and he gets captured again. The trash golems begin to drag Archer off, and Armstrong looks at his rare bottle of whiskey, and he says he's sorry, Frank. He tried his best. He throws the bottle so hard that it bursts through the trash golem's head, and then it breaks. Armstrong begins to sulk, but what he doesn't see is Mary Marie pocketing another bottle. After finally killing almost everything, Mary Marie begins to set fire to the entire place, and the three of them continue to escape. Back topside though, the sisters waited for Mary Marie's return when Brackus stuck his head out of the bag shouting, "How Armstrong was an idiot! To celebrate his escape, it's time to go have some booze from the outside world for a change." As he begins to drink, Brackus begins to grow in size, stating that it was the bag that was sapping his powers. Well, no more of that! Brackus tells the sisters to step inside. He's got a bag to close, and as the sisters get ready to fight, he tells them, "Actually, forget the bag. Armstrong and his friends are probably dead anyways. I got better things to do." But back down in the bag, Armstrong sees that they need to sober up Archer, so he's got a plan. Coffee! But first, Armstrong punches Archer in the gut, causing him to throw everything up again. Archer goes on so long that even Mary Marie has to check her watch until Archer finally finishes throwing up and falls over. Armstrong gets the coffee ready and tells Mary Marie thanks for coming down here. If she hadn't, they pretty much would have been screwed. And Mary Marie tells him that she didn't come down here for him, she came for Archer. He was a good kid before he met Armstrong. Armstrong tells her that he is. He's actually been a good influence on me. That's why I came down to get the bottle, to make amends for something that I had done, but now this whole trip was a waste of time, and there's an even bigger mess to clean up. Mary Marie asks if the bottle was important enough to risk his life, and he tells her yes. So she smiles, stating, "Good to know." After a bit of sobering up for Archer, the three begin to climb up the rope to get back out, and once there, Archer looks around at all of the nuns. He asks them, why are they here? Mary Marie agreed to not get the sisters involved. Armstrong was right! You were gonna steal the satchel, Mary Marie! And she shouts, "Fine, yes, I was gonna steal the bag. In fact, I still might. It is what I do, you know, Archer." She calls down to get a status report on the situation, and the sisters tell her that the situation is getting out of hand. The demon forces are throwing a street festival of massive destruction. The demon is, very, very drunk. Over in the streets, Brackus has grown taller than the buildings, and he tells everyone, "Today, we will drink the town! Tomorrow, the world!" Through the smoke, he hears someone calling out to him, and he looks down to see Archer, Armstrong, and Mary Marie, and he asks them, "How the hell did you get out?" Armstrong says that he's been to a million parties, and this is the worst! And Archer mentions that they probably shouldn't insult Brackus, seeing as he's now a giant, you know? Brackus orders his party followers to attack, and Armstrong says, "That's right, I forgot people who drink from Brack become a part of his spell. But does anyone else hear a whistling sound?" A second later, a dumpster comes falling out of the sky, landing on Armstrong, crushing him, and Brackus starts to laugh. "Ha ha ha! Yeah, trap me in the bag. I'll drop a freaking dumpster on your head. Boom!" Brackus then tells everyone here that he's rambling again, but talking time is now over. It's time to party. Armstrong begins to crawl out from underneath the dumpster, and he starts to see a figure. Is that Frank? He begins to shout everything he said about him was true. Armstrong treated Frank and Muriel like they didn't matter. He tried to go get the whiskey, tried to make things right, but then he broke it. Mary Marie asks what the hell is wrong with Armstrong, and Archer says that getting hit with a dumpster may have finally broken his brain. Archer goes to help Armstrong up from the trash, and Armstrong mentions that Brackus is a giant, and that's pretty bad. But they should first neutralize his following, weakening him, and then try to sober him up. Archer asks how, and Armstrong tells him, "I'm not sure, but we could go ahead and start punching people and see where that goes." Archer sighs. Alright, fine. They need to stop using that as the solution to every problem they come across. The group begins to split up, and the sisters shout out to a group of bros that all of their frat brothers had sex with all of their sisters and girlfriends. Soon the crowd of frat boys begins to shout at each other, shouting, "Bruh, not cool!" And the whole group starts to fight between themselves. As the crowds get smaller and smaller, Mary Marie calls her sister nuns to attack, and while Archer is distracting Brackus by trying to talk him back into the satchel, Mary Marie cuts through Brackus' legs. Armstrong comes running up telling Archer and Mary Marie that they missed it. He threw like 30 hippies off a roof, and he might have permanently crippled 3/4 of a terrible Fish cover band. But as Armstrong continues his story, Brackus punches through a building, and then he asks, "Did you guys finish him yet?" Brackus continues drinking to retain his size, but then Armstrong says, "I got an idea. Where's the closest coffee shop around here?" The sisters start pointing all around until one of them says, "Actually, there's one right behind you." "Great! I'm gonna need enough coffee to sober up even a party god." Archer mentions that he is 3 stories tall, and Armstrong tells him, "Good point. We're gonna need someone to help me carry it back." Armstrong runs into the half-destroyed shop, shouting that he needs 10,000 venti espressos. Venti's the biggest, right? But outside, the sisters begin to taunt Brackus, stating that he's not much of a party god, more like a party loser, and he gets up to chase them. Archer starts to run through the building, and he jumps out and lands straight in the middle of Brackus' stomach, and then Brackus starts to throw up all of the booze that he's been drinking, flooding the area with booze and throw up. Back inside of the coffee shop, Armstrong asks if they have any pre-made coffee in the back or something like that, and the clerk tells him, none of your business. So, ignoring him, Armstrong runs to the back, kicks open the door, and sees a whole truck of coffee sitting there. Moments later, Armstrong comes driving the truck over, telling everyone to hurry up and hook the hose to Brackus' mouth. Coffee begins to jet into Brackus' mouth, and he jumps straight up shouting, yes, I'm awake, here they go, punch, punch, punch. Brackus starts throwing his fists around, but he can't even break through a steel beam. He then begins to shrink, and Archer shouts, quick, get him back in the satchel before it's too late. And Mary Marie runs up, cutting Brackus' head off. Mary Marie tells the sisters to get ready to leave shortly after this, but Armstrong asks, what's the rush? Me, Frank, and Muriel used to have a tradition of toasting after our adventures. So, they sit and drink. Armstrong explains that that bottle was a very special bottle to him. Frank and Muriel used to toast with it. But then Frank passed away while hating Armstrong, so he thought he'd give the bottle to Muriel to try and make up. As Armstrong continues his story, Mary Marie shouts, damn it, and she pulls out the bottle, stating that it was supposed to be a bargaining chip. Armstrong grabs Archer and Mary Marie, shouting, you're the best! We should never fight again! Later, after cleaning up, Armstrong and Archer stand in front of Frank's grave as Armstrong asks, how do I look? And Archer tells him, you clean up well. But soon, Armstrong hears a voice call out to him. The two of them turn, and Armstrong says that he wasn't sure she would come. He just wanted to pay his respects and apologize. And Muriel tells him to shut up. She's too old to hold a grudge, and it's good to see him again. She asks what he's got with him, and he tells her it's the last bottle of Lagavulin, and he thought that she should have it as a symbol of amends. Muriel begins to laugh, stating that if it wasn't for him, her and Frank would never have met. Because of that, they both forgave him years ago. She was actually referring to the young man. Archer steps up and says, my name's Obadiah Archer, and it's a pleasure to meet you. Armstrong says that he's been a good influence on him. Muriel says that she would love to hear all about those stories over dinner. As the three of them begin to walk to her car, Muriel asks, what should they do with the bottle? Drink it together or keep it for herself? And Armstrong tells her, the bottle is worth at least $10,000. Muriel then asks Archer, how is it that he ended up following this immortal scoundrel around? And Archer tells her, it all started with me trying to kill him. So she starts laughing, stating she tried that a few times herself. Damn fool is hard to kill. And that brings us to the conclusion of the Archer and Armstrong relaunch, following their adventures against Brackus. There's a totally second story already going, and you guys need to check it out yourself, because this is one of my favorite Valiant books right now. It's pretty much this and Eternal Warrior. So if you guys aren't reading both of those, go check them out. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Comicstorian and Instagram at Comicstorian, and I'll see you next time right here.